strange question for you. Who wants $1? Anybody want that? Paul, come on, everybody. We're going to look at your tax returns after this. Okay, you got $1. No problems. So, Paul gets $1. But you know what? I could probably be more generous. Who wants... Who wants $5? Anybody want $5? Okay, man in the back. In the white hoodie. You had your hand up first. Don't want it anymore? Yeah, you. There you go. Yeah, you're the one. Okay, so Paul got $1, but I was feeling more generous. So you got $5. Never mind that my picture is on this one. That's great. Okay. All right. So I was feeling a little more generous, but you know what? I'm not really giving from my want. That's from my excess. Who wants a $10 bill? You know what? I got to stop there. I didn't have one in my wallet. I would imagine all of us are kind of in the same position. If you see somebody, you could give $1 to somebody who's in need. But then you realize, well, you know what? I probably have a little space to give a little bit more. And you probably could. And then you think on that, and you know what? I could give a little more. And you could probably keep going until you reach a rather large number, because we do indeed give from our excess. As a matter of fact, I saw a statistic one time that said, if you have change in a jar at home, you are richer than 97% of the people in the world. Interesting, isn't it? Because I know I have a jar with change. And no, Paul, you can't have that. The gospel today is talking about the heroic generosity of the widow in the story. And she gives not because it's nice. She might not even know where that money goes to. But she gives because it's the godly thing to do. She sees the treasury at the temple and says, I have to do something. I have to help. She probably realizes as well that God has been generous to her. And therefore, even though she has only 2 small coins, she gives what she can because of God's generosity to her. And so we have an opportunity every day, really, but especially now, to think about God's gifts to all of us. We have life, we have the world, we have our belief, we have joy, and we could probably go on forever. I remember a number of years ago, I won't tell the parish, and it wasn't me, but a pastor put up microphones throughout the church on Thanksgiving Day and said, instead of homily, I'd like you to come up to the microphone and tell everyone what you are thankful for. Well, people flocked in droves to the microphones and said, I'm grateful for this, grateful for that. Well, the part of the homily there went on for 45 minutes, and people were furious because they wanted to get back home to Thanksgiving. But the thing is, we realize that if we have the chance, we are able to stand up and say, yes, I have been blessed. Yes, God has been so good to me. Yes, I have received everything I need. And our blessings really are innumerable. So God has been heroically generous with us, capped off by the gift of His own Son, sent to us to give us new life and joy, to give us the redemption that we need, and that salvation freely offered to us, given to us, and nothing expected in return. And so God will not be outdone in generosity. We then are called to imitate that very same virtue. The lady in today's gospel is heroically generous. She's a widow. So first of all, her financial operations are pretty limited. And Jesus says she has given from her poverty. He knows that she doesn't have much, and yet still she is able to give. She is able to realize how generous God has been to her. Also, at this time in in the history of humanity. Because she is a widow, she doesn't have a man in her life, and so therefore there's no one to protect her and provide for her. She is completely alone. But still, nonetheless, she is able to give. She is able to be generous, heroically, to the treasury. And then you realize as you go through, one thing that came to my head was just how women in general are so generous with themselves. So there will be other women as well who will encounter Jesus. There will be a woman who will have a jar of oil, and instead of keeping it to herself, she will break it and pour it over Jesus to remind him, to anoint him for the day of his burial. And some people around him said, "She's wasting that. Why is she doing that?" And Jesus, of course, tells them she's not wasting it at all. She is giving it to God. She is handing that gift of oil, that precious oil, later. And women also will be present at Jesus' crucifixion, where the men have all gone. And the women will give of themselves, give of their time, staying with Jesus at the most difficult time of his life. And so heroic generosity seems to be the phrase of the day. This widow gives courageously, and she's probably not sure where the next meal will come for her, but she's heroic because she gives until really it hurts her. And also she's giving religiously at the temple, where Jesus sacrifices, where everyone sacrifices, and now she sacrifices herself as well, sacrifices her 2 small coins because of God's goodness to her. So then we also are called to that same level of heroic giving, that call to sacrifice. And I know what you're saying. "Oh, geez, here it comes. He's looking for more cash. Why does God always seem to be short of cash every week?" Well, we give not because God is a spendthrift, rather because he is truly generous with us to the point of giving his own son. The concept of a gift in the Old Testament to God was you gave 10% of your harvest back to God. That's what's known as the tithe. And there are some very strict Christian parishes that if you go to their church, they'll ask you for your tax return so that they can calculate what your tithe will be. Maybe the next pastor could do that. So really, we are called to ask ourselves, have we given from our excess? Or do we give heroically? Do we give generously from a deep gratitude for all that God has given to us? Certainly God has shared everything with us, including his own son. And now we are called as well to a spirit of heroic generosity, giving generously for the benefit of God and those who are around us.